there is already a signal calling your name. Not from the future, but from a frequency running parallel to this one, vibrating just beyond your current awareness. It isn't louder than your doubts, but it is clearer. It isn't urgent, but it is relentless. And if you've ever felt a quiet pull toward a version of yourself that felt more you than anything you've lived so far, a sudden glimpse of a life where you're free, loved, abundant, and clear, that wasn't imagination. That was reception. You didn't invent it. You tuned into it. Because the truth is, the reality you desire already exists. You just haven't aligned with its frequency yet. Most people believe they must create their dream life, as if it doesn't exist until they grind it into form. They hustle, they push, they affirm, they visualize, all from the assumption that they're trying to get from here to there. But what if that assumption is the very illusion keeping them stuck? What if there is no there, only layers of here you haven't tuned into yet? Imagine your life as a vast radio system. Every possible version of you, your highest expression, your lowest state, and every variation in between, is already broadcasting on a different station. You are not creating the signal. You are the antenna. And what you receive depends entirely on your frequency. Right now, somewhere within the quantum field, there is a version of you who already embodies the clarity, peace, and power you've been searching for. Not a fantasy, not wishful thinking, a vibrational reality encoded into the fabric of the multiverse. Every time you feel a moment of resonance, a sudden stillness, a wave of insight and unexplainable alignment, it isn't coincidence. It's contact. For a brief moment, you matched their frequency. And in that match, you remembered what your mind had forgotten. You don't have to become that version of you. You only have to tune into them. But tuning in requires more than desire. It requires stillness. It requires the courage to stop reacting to the noise, the fear, the limitation, the familiar chaos, and begin attuning to what's possible. Most people try to change their lives by rearranging their environment. But in the quantum field, that logic is inverted. Reality doesn't shift because you change the world. The world shifts because you change your signal. You don't pull experiences toward you. You pull yourself into coherence, and the field responds. Physicist David Bohm spoke of the implicate order, a deeper, non-local realm where all possibilities exist in folded, holographic layers. Nothing is separate. What we experience is simply the unfolding of a deeper reality. The life you want is not waiting in the future. It is folded within you, waiting for the frequency that unlocks it. Abraham Hicks calls it the vortex. Bohm described it as the implicate movement. Different language, same truth. You are never chasing your future. You are remembering how to receive it. And here is the paradox. If this reality already exists, why can't you feel it? Why can't you see it? Because you've been trained to listen only to what's loud. The external world shouts, algorithms, bills, relationships, insecurities, all competing for your attention. But the timeline of your becoming doesn't shout. It whispers. It speaks in frequency, not words. And the longer you remain entangled with the static of who you used to be, the harder it becomes to hear the tone of who you already are. But once you hear it just once, you can't unhear it. You'll begin to sense when something is off frequency, when a conversation, a decision, or a routine no longer matches the life you're meant to live. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Aligning with your true timeline often feels like loss of familiarity, of identity, of false safety. But what you're actually releasing is interference. And what rises in its place is clarity. I once worked with a woman, let's call her Eva. She spent a decade searching for her purpose. Workshops, retreats, endless courses, she did everything right. Yet nothing ever stayed. Then one day, during a guided meditation, she felt something shift. Not a thought, a vibration. It was like her whole body began tuning to a different station, one she didn't recognize but somehow remembered. In that moment, a single phrase arose. "You're not lost, you're out of tune." That sentence changed everything. She stopped searching. She started listening, not to the noise of the world but to the subtle resonance within her field. She began aligning her choices not with logic but with vibration. And within weeks, the purpose she had spent years chasing landed on her lap, not as a job but as a state. She didn't find her calling, she matched it. Because the field doesn't reward effort, it responds to coherence. So here's the question no one ever taught you to ask. What am I tuned into, and is it even mine? Are you aligned with a future you actually want, or just looping a frequency inherited from your past? Because every thought, every emotional default, every nervous system reaction is a dial, and most people never change the station. They just decorate it, try to feel better inside it, try to succeed within it. But the real shift comes when you step back and realize you're not the song playing. You're the receiver, and receivers can be recalibrated. As we move forward, we're going to dismantle the lie that you need to make it happen. You don't. The reality you seek has always been there, vibrating, waiting, fully formed in the implicate field. And once you learn to tune in, not just with your thoughts but with your being, the jump becomes effortless. Because you're not trying to get somewhere, you're simply collapsing into what's already true. And once you taste that truth, you'll never settle for static again. You've been taught that there is only one you, one linear identity moving through a single reality, making choices that determine a singular future. But this is a distortion, a simplification designed for survival, not expansion. Because in the realm of quantum reality, the self is not a single point. It is a field, a spectrum containing infinite versions of you, each vibrating at a different frequency, each existing simultaneously in what physicists now call parallel realities. These aren't fantasies or sci-fi speculation. They are entangled potentials, scientifically modeled, spiritually intuited and available now. Let's begin with David Bohm. While the mainstream scientific world obsessed over particles and equations, Bohm dared to look deeper, beneath the visible, beneath the measurable, into what he called the implicate order. In this view, everything we experience in the material world, what he called the explicate order, is simply an unfolding of something much deeper, more fundamental, and infinitely more mysterious. In the implicate order, space and time dissolve. Objects are no longer separate, and consciousness is not an effect of the brain but the medium of reality itself. This changes everything, because if reality is unfolding from a deeper field of interconnected possibility, and if your consciousness is part of that field, then you are not moving through time, you are tuning into layers of it. Every decision, every emotion, every subtle shift in frequency becomes a selector, collapsing one version of your life from the infinite that already exists. Here, where most people get stuck, they believe their past defines their future. But in the implicate field, past and future are entangled, woven into a timeless fabric that responds not to memory, but to momentum. The version of you that you've always dreamed of becoming is not somewhere ahead of you, waiting to be reached. It's already here in a parallel fold of the field, fully formed, fully alive, broadcasting its frequency like a beacon. You don't reach it by working harder. You reach it by matching its signal. Abraham Hicks calls this the vortex, a vibrational reality where everything you've ever asked for, felt, or imagined exists in readiness. But most people don't live in the vortex because they're vibrating in reaction to their current reality. They observe their bank account, their relationship, their body, and use those observations to define what is real. But in doing so, they collapse the same version of reality over and over again. Because they never change the lens, they don't realize the field responds not to what you see, but to what you be. Let's ground this with an analogy. Imagine walking into a massive library. Inside are infinite books, each one a different version of your life. Some are almost identical to the one you're living now, just a few details shifted. Others are wildly different versions where you made one different choice, one different belief, one different breath. The books don't move, they don't compete, they simply wait. And the one you read, the one you emotionally invest in, becomes your reality. Not because it's the only one, but because it's the one you tuned into. Now consider this. Every time you feel frustrated, hopeless, or trapped, what you're really experiencing is energetic dissonance, a mismatch between your current self and a parallel self that is pulling on your awareness. You feel the tension because the field is trying to synchronize you with a more coherent version of yourself. That's why discomfort is not punishment, it's a compass. But most people interpret discomfort as danger. They run from it, suppress it, avoid it, and in doing so they miss the signal. Because what you resist persists not as punishment but as a mirror. The field cannot lie, it can only reflect. So the question becomes, how do you shift into a parallel version of reality that already holds the experiences you desire? The answer is not in thought alone. It's in state, your emotional, vibrational, and somatic coherence. Your body is the interface. Your nervous system is the dial. And every time you align your inner state with a higher frequency, gratitude instead of lack, presence instead of control, surrender instead of resistance, you begin to collapse a different version of the field. Let me give you an example. A man I once coached, deeply stuck in scarcity, believed he had to work 14-hour days just to stay afloat. He had a brilliant mind, but his nervous system was conditioned to chaos. He could not feel safe unless he was suffering. One day, he had a simple insight. What if there's already a version of me who earns more by doing less? That question became his daily portal, not a mantra, a frequency check. He began walking differently, breathing differently, organizing his day as if he were that version. Within months, his business restructured itself, not because he forced change, but because he finally matched the version of himself that already lived the shift. You don't need to imagine a fantasy life. You need to remember what already exists within the implicate field. You don't need to script your future. You need to receive it through resonance, not resistance. But here's the nuance. Your logical mind will resist this. It will say, but I don't see it yet, but I still feel fear, but my environment hasn't changed. And that's because the mind is addicted to evidence. It doesn't understand that evidence is the echo, not the cause. In quantum terms, reality is retrocausal. It updates based on observation, not chronology, which means what you feel now with coherence becomes the architecture of what you see next, not the other way around. This is not blind faith. This is field mechanics. The wave collapses into particle. The infinite collapses into form. And you, the observer, are the one collapsing it. So here is your truth. Perhaps for the first time, you don't have to create your dream life. You simply have to stop collapsing the one that doesn't match who you really are. And the way to do that is not to fight the current version, but to stop tuning into it as truth. The field doesn't need fixing. It needs fidelity. And the more loyal you become to the frequency of your chosen self, not in theory, but in practice, breath by breath, the more the field will begin to rearrange itself in ways that defy logic but honor vibration. Because the versions of you that hold peace, love, and purpose have never been far away. They've only been out of tune, every day without realizing it. You're tuning into a version of reality that already exists, not because you want it, but because you're observing it. Your attention is not passive. It's a creative act, a quantum command. In the field, what you look at doesn't just get your energy, it becomes your world. And this is where most people get caught in the trap of stagnation. They keep observing the same patterns, same emotions, same identity, and wondering why nothing changes. But the field isn't repeating them. You are. Let's go back to the foundations. In quantum mechanics, Particles do not exist in one place until they are observed. They remain in a state of potential, a wave function holding all possibilities at once. It is only when an observer interacts, when consciousness enters the equation, that the wave collapses into a specific outcome. This is not just a strange property of subatomic particles. It is a mirror of your life. Every choice, every reaction, every expectation collapses a timeline, not in the future, in the now. So what is a timeline really? It's not a sequence of events. It's a vibrational stream, a frequency track composed of coherent emotion, identity, and attention. When you operate from guilt, fear, or lack, you collapse a version of reality where those emotions are reflected, not as punishment but as mirrored resonance. The field isn't personal, it's precise. It responds to signal, not stories, and the story you tell yourself is irrelevant if your frequency tells a different tale. Now here's the part most never see. You cannot jump to a new timeline by thinking your way there. You jump by observing from a new identity. And observation doesn't mean watching with your eyes. It means embodying a lens, a felt perspective that transforms how you relate to what you see. If you continue to observe your life as the person who is behind, broke, and waiting, not enough, then no matter how much you want change, you will keep collapsing the same probable path. The observer is the signal, and the signal determines the outcome. Imagine standing in front of an infinite number of doors. Each one leads to a different version of your life. Not metaphorically, literally. The quantum field is infinite, and every possibility you can imagine already exists as a vibrational pattern. You don't open these doors with effort. You open them with observation. The moment you see yourself differently, truly, energetically, somatically, you collapse into a new path. The door doesn't swing open. You disappear from one room and appear in another. But that shift requires a break in your default observation pattern. Here, how most people observe their reality, through survival. They wake up and immediately scan for problems, bills, to-do lists, relationships, past regrets. Their emotional body is trained to anticipate danger. So even when nothing is wrong, they are observing life as if it's something to fix. This creates internal incoherence. The heart says, "I want peace," but the field receives the frequency of panic. And so the mirror reflects more things to worry about, not because the world is broken, but because the observer is divided. So what does it mean to observe from coherence? It means you wake up and feel first. You tune your heart before you touch your phone. You enter your day as the version of you who already lives in clarity, not because you're pretending, but because you've remembered that version is real. That version already exists. And your job is not to build her, it's to become still enough to see through her eyes, to let her become the one who looks, chooses, and breathes through you. And when you do this, even for 5 seconds, you begin to collapse new outcomes. Conversations shift, opportunities appear, synchronicities increase. The path doesn't change because you pushed harder. It changed because the one walking it isn't the same. Let me share a real story. A client of mine, we'll call him Julian, had struggled for years to leave a toxic job. Every time he tried to quit, something would pull him back. Fear, family pressure, the illusion of stability. He kept observing his life from the identity of the trapped provider. But one day, during a breathwork session, he had a shift. He saw a version of himself who was already free, who had made the leap, who was doing work he loved, who woke up with peace instead of pressure. It wasn't a fantasy. It was familiar. And in that moment, he chose to observe from that version. He didn't quit the next day. He didn't suddenly win the lottery, but something shifted. The fear lost its grip. The clarity stayed. And within 2 months, he had built the bridge, not by forcing an escape, but by observing his life through the lens of freedom. His actions changed because his observation changed. His vibration led, reality followed. So what does this mean for you? It means the next version of your life isn't hidden. It's simply not being observed. And the observer, the real one, is not your thoughts. It's your felt sense of identity. When you shift the observer, you shift the signal. And when you shift the signal, the field collapses accordingly. But here's the subtle truth. You must become loyal to the new observation. Most people shift for a moment, then snap back. They touch the frequency of abundance, then go back to observing lack. They glimpse their power, then retreat into old reactions. The field doesn't punish this, but it does reset, because the field is loyal to coherence, not intention. And intention without embodiment is noise. So here's your practice. Start observing your day from the identity of the version of you who already lives the reality you desire. Before reacting, ask, what would they notice here? How would they interpret this moment? What would they choose? Not as performance, but as perception. You don't need to change your entire life overnight. You just need to change who is watching, because once the observer changes, so does everything they see. And in the next chapter, we won't just talk about timelines. We'll jump together. You've spent your life moving through time. Now you're going to feel time move through you, not conceptually, not symbolically, but somatically, in your body, in your breath, in your electromagnetic field. Because timeline jumping is not a thought exercise. It's not about closing your eyes and wishing harder. It's about entering a new frequency with such clarity, such emotional fidelity, that the old version of you cannot survive inside it. You don't visit the new timeline, you become it. And when you do, everything else, your choices, your emotions, your external world, begins to reorganize around your signal. Most people imagine timeline jumping like teleportation. 1 second you're here and the next you're somewhere else. But that model is rooted in physical change. Quantum reality operates differently. The shift isn't physical first. It's perceptual. You still wake up in the same bed, surrounded by the same people, with the same memories, but something invisible and irreversible has changed. You no longer respond to life from the identity of the old timeline. And because of that, your field stops emitting the vibrational contract that held that version of reality in place. You may still walk into the same room, but the version of you who walks into it is not the same. So how do you jump? We begin with coherence. When your mind, body, and heart emit contradictory signals, when you think one thing, feel another, and behave from a third, the field becomes confused. There's static in your signal. But when those 3 centers synchronize, when your thoughts, feelings, and breath move as one, your signal sharpens. You become legible to the quantum field. You stop broadcasting noise. You start transmitting identity. Let's prepare your body. Sit or lie down. Close your eyes. Begin to slow your breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Let each exhale carry away the version of you that's trying to control the outcome. Let each inhale pull in presence. Continue until your breath feels like a rhythm, not a task. Now place one hand over your heart, not as a gesture, but as a key. This is your tuner. Your field emanates strongest from here. As you feel the beat beneath your palm, begin to imagine that you are not breathing into your lungs. You are breathing into the version of you who already lives the life you want. Let them rise, see them, feel them, embody them. Don't try to build their life in your mind. Feel their state, their posture, their emotional baseline, their silence. Are they at peace, excited, clear, confident? Let your own body begin to mimic that resonance. Shoulders relax, spine lengthens, face softens, the breath slows even more. Now activate the quantum sense, your imagination. Bring to your mind a single moment from this future self's life, a moment that would only happen if the jump had occurred. It could be a phone call, a letter, a hug, a new space, a sunrise scene from somewhere different. Let it unfold naturally. Don't force it. Trust what arises. What do they see, smell, hear? What's in their hand? What's in their chest now? And this is the key. Begin to feel the moment as real. Let your nervous system believe. Let your heart respond. Let your body begin to anchor this as not someday, but now. This isn't visualization. This is vibrational substitution. You are overriding the old signal, not with fantasy but with resonance. When the feeling is full, speak silently or aloud the following phrase: I accept this as my current reality. Hold that. Let your body absorb the new frequency like sunlight on skin. Let the old version fade, not because you pushed it away, but because it no longer fits. Now slowly begin to bring awareness back to your breath. Notice the space you're in, but before you open your eyes, feel the field. Feel what shifted. You may not have moved physically, but something moved in you. That is the jump. And now you walk differently. You respond differently. You make choices that match the identity you just felt. You hold the frequency even when it's inconvenient, even when no one else sees it yet, because you saw it. And that's enough. The field has been updated. But this is where most people fall off. They do the practice once, feel a shift, then step back into old habits, not because the practice failed, but because their loyalty to the new identity was conditional. They expected the outer world to mirror the inner change instantly. But the field doesn't work that way. It doesn't rush. It aligns and it watches for coherence over time. So here's the truth. The jump is not a one-time event. It's a recalibration. You'll need to return to the frequency, rehearse it, embody it not as work but as devotion. Because the reality you jumped into will feel foreign at first. Your body, used to old chemistry, will try to seduce you back into the familiar, into patterns that no longer match your signal. That's not a sign to stop. It's a sign that the leap was real and the field is testing for consistency. When you begin living from the new frequency, even when the world hasn't caught up, that's when reality begins to bend. People treat you differently. Opportunities emerge. Emotions regulate. Synchronicities become normal, not because life changed, but because you changed your relationship with time, self, and signal. So here's your anchor right now in the energy of the jump. Declare it into the field, not as an affirmation, but as a confirmation. Comment: I have shifted. If you felt the frequency shift, why? Because ritual becomes real when it's witnessed, even digitally. Your comment becomes a frequency stamp, a vibrational signature sent into the collective field of this community. And when others see it, feel it, respond to it, the timeline strengthens. Remember, you didn't just imagine something different. You tuned into something that's always been real, and now you walk as the one who's already there. You felt it now, the shift, the subtle but undeniable sensation that something in you has moved, and with it, reality has started to bend. But what happens next is the part almost no one prepares for. You see, the greatest challenge after a timeline jump isn't the new frequency. It's the gravitational pull of the old one. Most people don't stay in the new timeline, not because they didn't jump, but because they unconsciously negotiated their way back. And if you're not aware of this trap, you'll find yourself reliving the same patterns you swore you left behind, with no idea why. Let's begin with what actually happens after a quantum jump. When you access a new timeline, one where peace, clarity, love, or abundance is already normalized, your field expands. Your body begins emitting a different signal. Your electromagnetic rhythm changes. But your nervous system doesn't always interpret this as good. It interprets it as unfamiliar. And to a body trained by trauma, chaos, or scarcity, unfamiliar often feels unsafe. So without even realizing it, you begin seeking ways, subtle, habitual ways, to return to what you've always known. It might show up as procrastination, as sudden anxiety, as a craving for drama, over-explaining, or control. You might pick a fight, sabotage an opportunity, or slip back into a behavior you thought you'd outgrown. Not because you're broken, but because your biology is trying to restore homeostasis. Even if that homeostasis was rooted in suffering, the body craves familiarity more than it craves freedom. Let me tell you a story. A man named Caleb had been working on shifting his reality for years. He had visualized, meditated, affirmed, and finally he felt the jump, a clear shift into a timeline where his business began to flourish and his inner peace felt stable. But 3 weeks in, everything fell apart. Revenue dipped, old fears returned, he spiraled. When we sat down together, I asked him a simple question. What version of you are you being loyal to right now? He paused, tears welling in his eyes. The one who's always trying to fix everything, he said. That sentence revealed everything, because the jump had worked. But Caleb had never fully let go of the identity that got him there. He was still vibrationally entangled with the part of himself who felt useful only when solving problems. So when peace arrived, he didn't feel safe. He felt irrelevant. The frequency of the new timeline was received, but not held. This is what most people miss. Jumping timelines requires not just accessing a new frequency, but releasing the survival codes of the old one. You must break the subconscious agreements that kept you looped in suffering. Agreements like I need to struggle to feel worthy, or if I slow down, I'll fall behind, or if I'm happy, something bad will happen. These are not just thoughts. They are contracts, and if they remain unsigned in your nervous system, the field will default to their frequency, no matter how powerful your rituals may be. So how do you stay in the new timeline? First, you must become hyper-aware of your emotional set point. What is the default state you fall into when things get quiet? That state, whether it's urgency, guilt, self-doubt, or overwhelm, is the gravitational center of your old reality. And until you neutralize it, it will keep collapsing timelines that match it. Next, you must defend the new frequency as sacred. That means saying no to anything that pulls you back into energetic agreements you've outgrown. It means walking away from conversations, habits, and environments that try to seduce you back into who you no longer are. Not with resentment, with reverence. Because the field is watching and it will test your signal. Not to punish, but to calibrate, to ask, is this the version of you you're really choosing? And when those tests come, they will look familiar. The same kind of email, the same kind of delay, the same kind of triggering conversation. But you will feel different. You will respond instead of react. And that moment of conscious choice, that's how the new timeline stabilizes. But let's go deeper. You must learn to be comfortable with the void. Between the timeline you left and the one that fully manifests, there is a space, a vibrational buffer, a transition zone. It's where the old life no longer fits, but the new life hasn't fully landed. Most people mistake this void for failure. They think nothing's happening, but in truth, everything is happening, invisibly, silently beneath the surface. This is where faith becomes frequency, not religious faith, quantum faith. A knowing that the field is reorganizing around your new coherence. Even when the evidence hasn't arrived, you don't wait in the void. You become in the void. You rehearse the identity. You embody the observer. You stabilize the signal. Not because it guarantees results, but because that's who you are. Now remember, the jump doesn't give you the new life. It gives you access to the version of you who already lives it. And staying there requires embodiment, not performance, not perfection, just vibrational integrity. You are no longer reacting from the past. You are responding from the field, and that response shapes reality. Here's the final key. You cannot do this alone. You must entangle with others who vibrate at the level of your chosen self. Community is not just emotional support. It's quantum reinforcement. When you speak your new identity into a shared field, the signal becomes harder to override. You're no longer just collapsing reality for yourself. You're co-generating a timeline that includes others, and that collective resonance amplifies everything. So take this as your confirmation. If you felt the jump, if you've sensed the shift but the old you keeps knocking, you're not regressing, you're recalibrating. The system is simply asking, are you loyal to the old version because it's familiar, or are you ready to stay loyal to the frequency of the unknown because it's true? Hold the line, stay in coherence. Let the discomfort dissolve into clarity. Let the old self grieve, bless it, and walk on. Because the next chapter isn't just about staying in the new timeline. It's about becoming the one who chooses timelines at will. And that begins when you remember what you truly are. You've jumped. You felt the shift. You've touched the timeline where everything you desire is not only possible, it's present. And now comes the highest realization of all. You are not just someone tuning into realities. You are the tuner itself, the mechanism, the antenna, the signal, the source. When you stop seeing reality as something outside of you, something to reach for, attract, fix, or decode, and start experiencing it as something you are constantly generating, you step beyond the role of the seeker. You become the field. This is the end of the illusion of separation. For most of your life, you've related to reality like a mirror. You've looked at it for validation. You've asked it to show you proof of your power, your worth, your alignment, and it has, but only as a delayed reflection. That approach made you a reactor. But what if you flipped it? What if, instead of looking to the mirror, you became the source of what's reflected? The moment you do this, truly, vibrationally, beyond intellectual understanding, the mirror stops being a prison. It becomes a canvas. You begin broadcasting reality instead of chasing it. This isn't metaphor, this is physics. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you hold generates an electromagnetic signal. Your heart, in particular, emits a field measurable up to several feet beyond your body, a field that is not only detectable but interactive. It communicates with the world around you. It synchronizes with others. It informs the quantum possibilities that will be rendered into form. When your heart and mind come into coherence, when they vibrate in harmony instead of opposition, you stop living in fragments. You begin living with signal integrity, and the field does not respond to effort, it responds to integrity. So how do you live as the tuner? First, you stop waiting for evidence. You become the cause. You feel it before it arrives. You move before it's confirmed. You trust your signal before the world reflects it back. This isn't naivete, it's field mastery. Second, you curate your emotional baseline. You no longer allow your inner state to be dictated by external conditions. You choose frequency as a lifestyle, not as a reaction. This isn't emotional bypassing, it's energetic leadership. You don't suppress emotion, you alchemize it. Third, you stabilize the state. You design rituals not for performance but for remembrance. Breathwork, visualization, movement, silence. These become your tuning forks, recalibrating your field back to coherence when life gets noisy. Because coherence isn't a peak experience, it's a practiced one. And finally, you stop asking, "What should I do?" You begin asking, "What frequency am I choosing to live from?" And what version of reality already exists there? When you live from frequency first, action becomes intuitive. You're no longer driven by urgency, you're guided by resonance. You don't chase opportunities, you receive instructions. The next steps arise within the state, not before it. This is the way of the tuner. And when you hold this role with reverence, something beautiful happens. Your life becomes art, not predictable but precise, not rigid but orchestrated. You begin to notice that what you need finds you before you ask. Conversations, people, and experiences arrive exactly when your field is ready to receive them. This isn't coincidence, it's entangled coherence. You're not manifesting, you're mirroring, and the field is loyal, not to what you want but to what you are. So the invitation now is simple: stay there, live there. Let the future be drawn through you, not chased by you. Let your body become the tuning instrument that shapes time into truth. Let your words carry signal. Let your stillness speak. Let your life vibrate as an instruction to the quantum field. This is who I am now. Respond accordingly. And if you're ready to deepen this embodiment, to move these truths from insight into integration, there is a next step waiting for you. We created a resource for this exact moment. A guide designed not just to help you jump timelines, but to stabilize them. Not just to understand coherence intellectually, but to live it through your nervous system, your choices, your breath, your field. It's called Awaken Your Quantum Power, and it's more than an ebook. It's a living framework designed to help you remember your role as the tuner, collapse timelines with clarity, and walk each day as the field itself. If today's transmission resonated, if you felt something shift, this guide is your next frequency match. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below. Explore it when your field feels called. No pressure, no urgency, only alignment. Because this path is no longer about becoming. It's about being, as signal, as source, as field. The old question was, what reality will I attract? The new question is, what signal am I broadcasting with every breath I take? And the answer is already shaping your life. You are the tuner. You are the mirror. You are the field. Now live like it.